Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. We are at a very precarious time in our nation's history. We seem to be more divided than ever, being asked to choose sides, living in digital echo chambers that breed more ignorance, contempt, and division, further boxed in by profit-driven algorithms. Sometimes I get so frustrated with this current political climate that leaves me feeling that our future is so bleak. This leads me to thoughts and feelings like, what's the use? This is someone else's problem, and I disconnect and get on with my own work. Thomas Jefferson, one of our U.S. founding fathers, reminds us, every man cannot have his way in all things. If his opinion prevails at some times, he should acquiesce on seeing that of others preponderate on other times. Without this mutual disposition, we are disjointed individuals, not a society. And Jefferson also stated, if informed what's that word, John?
Citizenry.
Citizenry, I guess. If
Citizenry.
Citizenry.
Citizenry
is at the heart. Informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. So in this episode, John and I are going to act as agents of democracy, and we'll break down how mindfulness and responsiveness can help us ease our frustrations and emotional reactivity and help us to see the greater perspective. Remembering that we, the people, we are all part of this republic, this great free nation that we all call the United States of America, meaning we are all in this together. So listen up as John and I dive into the power of meaningful and honest connection to ourselves and to your community, loving our neighbors instead of judging them based on the size of their truck or the town that they're from, being adults instead of acting like children, understanding that democracy requires compromise, and compromise requires active listening, and what is necessary together as citizens to keep steering this republic to the land of freedom, happiness, and prosperity to all.
Damn.
Welcome I know, right? Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness, everybody. John and I are really stoked about this episode. It's something we're very passionate about, as kind of what I've just said about what's going on in our country right now. And we know, and that's why we're doing this episode, that mindfulness and being awake and being present and being an adult can help us steer the ship away from this disaster that I feel like we're living in on a regular basis. So thanks for being here, John. Great topic today, man. It's great to see you.
I'm excited, man. And I'm excited to see you too. And let's get into this. Mindfulness in politics. Excited to hopefully spread some mindfulness in our society as we get into the political season, and hope to help everyone really get an idea of what mindfulness in politics means. Now, that said, yes, we want you to be mindful when you cast your vote. Obviously meaning you need to educate yourself and not just cast your vote because your best friend is casting a vote that way or because you like the way that someone looks. Yeah. Yes, so you want to be mindful. You want to educate yourself as you cast that vote. And that's not just for the president. That's all along the line, right? And we also encourage you to educate yourself on all the issues so that you're not just voting simply down the party line. Now, that's not necessarily the angle that we're going to talk about today, but we did want to just touch on that. We're going to be talking about respect and compassion for our fellow human beings. And we want to discuss how being more mindful in politics can help us to understand one another's political perspective, and how having different opinions, even having different political views, doesn't need to make us enemies, as we have seen in the past few years. I would say even past few decades, that there's definitely divisiveness here in our country, and we want to protect what we have developed. And we, and speaking as a retired service member, definitely want to protect what we have served to, definitely want to help to protect what we have served to defend. So that's your freedom of choice, and your freedom to vote and the democracy that we live in. But again, we have come to a point where we felt that this was definitely a necessary topic on the show. So where do you want to start, brother?
Well, based on something you said, like our differences are our strengths, John.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like, it can't like, I mean, that first quote, by, Thomas Jefferson, I put it in there. We put it in there because it's like, we have to realize that, I mean, yes, we have different opinions about things, but, to bully ourselves and bully our opinions and not acquiescing, as Thomas Jefferson said, and to understand and listen to other people's opinions and other people's needs. It's like, that's democracy. And democracy requires a hell of a lot of citizenry, right? Is that right?
There you go, citizenry.
And civility, right? I mean, I looked up the
sure.
definition of civility, right? And that's just being a good human being to another human being in a society that has laws and has community elements, and things that are necessary in order for this society to thrive and not devolve into nihilism and chaos. Like, there's things that we need to, each of us, uphold in an adult way that's required in order for what we're doing to continually run forward and not, succumb to the demise of, I guess, Rome and other civilizations. Like, we're at a very, very critical time right now. And I'm glad we're having this discussion because it's needed. It's so needed. Like,
Sure.
I feel we said the word adult a couple times in the intro because I'm not seeing a lot of adults out there. I'm not seeing it on the political stage or from our presidents, from our senators, from our congresspeople, from even from our local officials. It's, there's no compromise. There's no win-win. There's no, understanding and listening to other people's needs. And we're just fighting and fighting and fighting. And then, I mean, how do we have, Jefferson also says, I think a little bit later, it's like, how can we be enemies, John, if we're in the same republic? Like, that doesn't work. That just erodes this incredible opportunity we have as a country to self-determine from the people, not from an aristocracy, not from, a monarchy or anything like that, or a communism or something. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, a lot of this stems back to an episode that we've done before on having crucial conversations. And in having those crucial conversations, which are defined as conversations where, people have differing opinions, the outcome of the conversation is critical and stakes are high. And then, they have high emotions, right? And that seems to be every single conversation that is in the political arena, and we're not treating it as such. We're not treating them as crucial conversations. We're treating it as, hey, let's win the conversation, which we talked about in that episode on crucial conversations. That cannot be the goal. The goal has to be to come out of the conversation with something that is better for all parties and you can grow from it. But more often than not, what I see in the news, what I see in political discussions, it is coming in to win the discussion.
Right.
And
we're like weaponizing politics, weaponizing points of view instead of like trying to create discussions, instead of trying to create awareness about things that affect, our families, that affect us personally, that affect our community. Like, this is like, keep going.
Yeah. Well, and another thing is within that crucial conversation, you explore others' paths, right? Like, how did they get to their opinion? And not stating everything as fact, right?
Right.
Stating it as how you understand it. And more often than not, when you watch the news and there's some political debate or whatever, everything is being stated as fact. And nobody even wants to understand the other person's point of view. But when you explore others' paths, how they got to their ideals, their values, their opinions, and explore that with an open heart, and you can start to understand it, then maybe there is a better chance of meeting in the middle or some type of collaboration or cooperation or compromise. If you ask somebody who lives in inner city New York, versus somebody who lives in, out in the country, me,
Ruston, Louisiana,
or yeah, Ruston, Louisiana, or
where you're from.
Like that's where I'm from. Yeah, I mean that's where I was raised.
Yeah.
Now, I live out in the country here in Colorado Springs.
Right.
What they need, you're probably going to the inner city needs are going to vary from the country needs. Living out in the boonies, if you will. So sure, yeah, the needs are going to differ, and that's going to change the opinion. Hey, I need less government. Some people need more government, that kind of thing, right? I'm not saying I need less government or more. I'm just saying that sometimes your circumstances, almost always, your circumstances are going to drive your thoughts and opinions. And if you can look at somebody else's circumstances and understand what their thoughts and opinions, how they're driven by their circumstances, then maybe we can again reach that collaboration, cooperation, and compromise that government should be, right? Politics should be.
Yeah. I mean, it's I have, maybe John, we can kind of flow through the conversation this way and just kind of, I feel like I made a list here, like what is lacking right now in our politics, right? And this is from a high level, mindfulness perspective, and the things that I've identified and that, and I think everyone else can kind of feel these too. It's like there's a lack of respect. There's a lack of calmness that in our society when we get around politics. And I'll talk about a little bit later. We could both probably share stories. I was at the beach on Saturday. We got into a political discussion. It got pretty, it was okay. It was okay. It was respectful. It was adult. We were listening or trying to listen, but it definitely got heated and got loud and people were coming over and talking to us too. It was fucking wild. So, I think also what's lacking also is unity, listening, civility, flexibility, compromise, conversation, compassion, discussion, maturity, and trust, which is, another thing, John, that I see a lot now is like the whole, and this drives me nuts, like the us versus them mentality.
Sure.
And sure. I hear people I remember I was home a while ago, I think before or after the most recent presidential election. And I was hanging with some family. We're at all different types of political spectrum in my family. And I was, I kind of walked into one of my cousin relatives' houses to say hello. And they're having some sort of political, discussion about whatever, about their side. Right. And they just got really hush hush. And they're like, oh, we can't talk. They said, we can't talk now. He's on the other side. It's like,
right.
What fucking side? Like last time I checked, we're all citizens of the same republic. We're all, united. We're all part of the United States, not the divided states of America. And it was just, I was really kind of taken back. I'm like, fuck, man. If we're not, connecting and talking. Well, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, the us versus them mentality and also the assumptions that people make about which side you may or may not be on, right? Like, I think I shared this with you a while back. Like, I went to the dump with my truck to dump some stuff off, and I pull up, and the guy at the dump's starts talking, "Hey, nice truck. The Dems won't let you drive trucks like that anymore." And I'm like, okay, so he's automatically assuming that because I drive a truck that I'm a Republican. And not only that I'm a Republican, but the fact that I am such a staunch Republican that I am going to bash the other side. That same day, somebody comes up and because I practice mindfulness and meditation, they assume that I'm a Democrat and they start talking trash about the Republicans. And I'm like, man, can people, one, not assume which side I'm on, and then two, just because I'm on one side or the other, that doesn't mean I need to bash the other, right? I can, again, as a Republican, I can sit down as a civil human being and have a conversation and understand why a Democrat thinks the way they do, or vice versa. Maybe as a Democrat, I can sit down and talk to a Republican and understand why they think the way they do as a civil human being. And that's what you said, civility and compassion and flexibility, compromise. That's all lacking in these conversations. And, we did an episode on the mindfulness in the news.
Oh my God.
Man,
I'm glad we did.
I am too. And the news channels are also completely capitalizing on this, right? One news network is going to pander to the conservatives, and one news network is going to pander to the liberals, and then bash the other. And when we see that on the news, like, I've almost stopped watching the news because there's so much stuff that I know is just paid for. It's only on there because it's making money, right?
And what did drama, you say? Drama makes money.
If
fucking
bleeds,
drama makes money.
Right.
Sorry, John.
If it bleeds, it leads, right? I think that's what you said on the last episode.
Yes, exactly.
And it may not be literal bleeding, but it might be, let's make the other party, quote unquote, bleed, and then that's gonna get a lot of views, right? So, man, money is, yes, driving the news, but it's also, because it drives the news, it drives the politics. And so that's just one more reason we have to be that much more mindful about it. Because where is this direction coming from? Is it coming from your mind? Is it coming from your heart? Or is it coming from somebody else? Is it coming from the media, and they're driving your choices?
Well, I think it's also, it's if our current leaders and the news can keep us in an emotional state, we are not of our rational mind. We talk about this all the time, mindfulness, right? Responsive versus reactive. And if we're a reactive state and we're emotionally driven, what do? We get out of that executive function. We're not in our neocortex. We lack that cognitive flexibility, the cognitive inhibition, the working memory. I mean, just imagine if we were just to remind ourselves, John, of the early past of different things, maybe we wouldn't so easily be swayed into an opinion or back into the same opinion if we just took a step back and looked at our history as a country, as an individual, in also in our neighborhoods and stuff like that. I mean, when you're emotionally reactive, you are just like a savage. You're just trying to survive. You know, you have a very myopic way of thinking, of feeling, of even hearing, because the adrenaline, the cortisol, all the things that go on when we're in that fight, flight, or freeze survival mode. And it's seemingly sad to me that the news and now our political leaders like to keep us in that emotional state, because that's how they manipulate us.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's, again,
divide and conquer.
Follow the dollar, right? Go back to where that dollar is making a change, and you will see most likely that there's some politics behind it. And if you're able to understand that, then you understand why, you know, one network is one way and one network is the other. And it's fear based, right? We've talked about the scarcity mindset versus the mindset of abundance. And we fear, or at least they want us to fear, the other side, because, I don't know, they're going to take away our guns, or they're going to take away our right to X, Y, or Z. You know, again, there's fear being driven by both sides, and we need to understand why that is. And that's all because we're seeing things as a threat. Like you said, the fight, flight, or freeze is kicking in. Reactivity is taking over versus responding. And we've done episodes on that multiple times.
Right.
So let's work on being more mindful so that we can respond in politics rather than just reacting. And know, like, a lot of the time, something that resonated with me recently was I was at a conference, and an LGBTQ representative, or LGBTQ plus, stood up on the stage and was talking about rights and freedoms and not judging other people, and then she got into a point where she said, you got to be careful about who you hate, because who you hate may be somebody that you love. And man, that hit me hard in the chest. I was like, shit. There are times when my political views haven't aligned with my family's. There are times when my political views haven't aligned with my friends. And if I let my political views drive who I love and hate, that's gonna leave me pretty lonely. And I'm gonna end up hating some of my best friends, some of my family, and I do not want to do that. And
and you're gonna
a part of the having those civil conversations and understanding where they're coming from, having that compassion and the civility. Right. So, man, politics, yes, I believe it's necessary, but it can be so ugly if we look at it through the lens of I'm right and you are wrong, and there's nothing in between.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like also, I think, John, what I'm going to do is I'm like really excited to finish and continue my work with the Stanford course that I'm doing in compassion. And next I want to take a course in nonviolent communication.
Oh, nice.
I know I mentioned Marshall Rosenberg on this show again, and he says nobody wins in the game of who's right. Nobody wins. Absolutely no, because it's like in a democracy, John, as an adult, as citizens, in a free society, in a republic, we need to talk, we need to compromise, we need to listen. And Buddha talks about the middle way. Only way we get to the middle way is through that listening. And what works and what the expectation should be from every citizen, every mature, and hope I know I keep coming back to maturity and adulting because this is what's required. There's a win-win. Like you get a little piece, I get a little piece. It's not like, like I want all the blocks like a child, or like that's mine. Give me that. It's
right.
like that doesn't work. That just does not. When I ask just rhetorically, when have you seen that work? Like when? Like you're always going to have somebody that's angry or pissed off, and that angry and that pissed offness and that frustration might bring out some revenge, and therefore you're doing a little passive aggressive tit for tat. Like, I'm sure some of you might remember like neighbors out there, like if they, infringed on your property or did something or whatever, and they just get into this like messy passive aggressive bullshit instead of just knocking on their door and be like, hey, how can we make a compromise here? Like, right. How can I be a better neighbor? How can I do things a little bit differently so we're both comfortable, and things are both working for us. And that's democracy. That's what our forefathers, as they wrote the Constitution, had in mind. And it's what's required today more than ever. And it's required all the time within a free society and something that we call democracy.
Right, man. One of my favorite songs when I was growing up, I will try not to sing it, but I might get into it when I start reading start going through the lyrics. It was Diamond Rio. It's a country song. You may not get it, Will, but Diamond Rio, and the name of the song is Meet in the Middle. And it's about, a couple who's getting into an argument and they live far away from one another. And the song goes something like this. It's, I'd start walking your way, you'd start walking mine. We'd meet in the middle beneath that old Georgia pine. Let's see, I'm going to screw this up. Oh, okay. We would gain a lot of ground because we both give a little. Ain't no road too long if we meet in the middle. And that's what I believe is that we're, again, so often not willing to walk that distance, quote unquote, the metaphorical walk to meet somebody in the middle because, again, we are right and they are wrong and they need to walk all the distance to us. Right. Now, nobody is going to walk all the distance, right? We have to meet in the middle. Nobody is going to come all the way onto the other side of the line. We have to meet in the middle. And, John McCain, he was somewhat poo-pooed upon for reaching across the aisle. And I think that is something that we need to see more and more. Now, I also realize that you and I are two white men talking about this, but I hope that everyone who is watching and listening can see that we are doing our best to understand what others are feeling, right? And that term others, I hate that term too, because we've talked about othering, right? Yeah, well, that's where we get to. We get to the point where we other one another and don't see one another as human beings. Well, I want you to know, as our audience, Will and I see you all as human beings, and we appreciate your angles and views even those who are going to beat us up for having this show, like I know it's going to happen. People are going to be like, oh, well,
fuck 'em.
And you know what? I don't want to say fuck them. I want to say, hey, you know what?
I mean, like, hey, it's like John, we're speaking our truth from a place of heart. And if you can't agree with like that, we need to come together as people and compromise and actively listen and care for one another, then I don't know what country you're living in. Go live in China. Oof. Go live somewhere else. That I'm just saying.
Yeah,
like,
no,
if you don't like the freedom that we have in this country, then go live somewhere else that doesn't have those freedoms, and you're going to miss this country dearly.
Oh yeah, I mean we've talked about or you've seen people, hey, like if you don't like America, then go ahead and head out. If you think that America is wrong, then go ahead and leave. But I also this might be one of the times you and I disagree, Will. Is okay. I recently posted something about pronouns on my social media, and I got beat up by it, and I'm still getting beat up by it. And now, you know what? That's everyone's right. They can. Yes. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I want to give them my compassion and understanding for where they're coming from. And if they do beat us up for having this episode, hey, you know what? More power to you. You live in a country that is free, and you're able to have that opinion, and we are also living in that same country, and you and I can have that conversation, right? We are free to have this conversation and put it out there for others to watch or listen to, and that's what I love about this country, is that we're free. We are free.
Instead of how about othering or other citizens, how about like fellow citizens? We're all perfect. Citizens of this republic. We're fellow citizens, and I think what like we talked about respect a little bit. We talked about calm. I think let's dive a little bit into compromise, that win-win. How do we get to that win-win? And one thing that we brought up on the show, we've actually had Ryan Shattuck on the show talking about active listening or high quality listening. And that's what's required. Let's just break down the elements, just so people remember, because you can practice listening and high quality listening and active listening every single day when all the different interactions you have with so many different people. If you just stop and listen, put down, the barriers that you construct around other people, or just because like they might wear a different color, they might have a different color skin, they might be driving some sort of truck or, or whatever, or wearing something that seems a little bit out of whatever, judgmental from you. We can, what if you just stop, get calm, and just remember, listening is not waiting to speak, being judgmental, reactive, playing the game of who's right, and trying to fix or solve problems or negotiate. Like, that's not active listening. Active listening is leaning in, being genuinely curious, listening to their words, not yours, not waiting to hear things, like listening to their words, being empathetic, listening so deeply. I love this quote: listening so deeply that you disappear. This builds trust, connection, accesses our common humanity, and is a form of compassion. So it's like, that's, other tools. I just keep going. Active tools, being silent, let others do the talking. Maintaining eye contact is a great way to let people know that you're listening. And it's also listening. 75% of compassion, John, is just listening. Open body posture, since don't cross your arms. Like if you have ever, this really became very clear to me. Look at John. Like, I don't want to fucking talk to you. Like, look at that face. You know what I mean? Look at your shoulders are hunched and stuff. You know what I mean? You almost got like hair on your back, like a cat. You're like, right? So it's like, but if you have an open body, and I learned this like here in the city doing some like adult education programs, like you literally close off your body, you close off your energy, you have like a stance, like you're a kind of like a wall or a fortress, instead of somebody that's open, accepting, and receiving. Being curious is super important for as a tool of active listening. Seeking to understand, not to be understood. I'll say that again: seeking to understand, not to be understood. And there is freedom in controlling our reactions, and it's your job not to solve the problem or fix it. It is to be present. Active listening is an exercise in connection, not perfection. That's a good one. And questions that, here's a good one, John. Questions to ask that are going to foster active listening and create deeper understanding and engagement are, instead of like, going to the right or to the left and, bashing one side or the other. What if you lean in, keep that contact, that open body, right? Maintain that curiosity with asking questions like, or making statements like, what I heard you say was, and maybe repeat, to kind of stay in that conversation and let the other person know that you're with them and jiving with that particular line of conversation. Or maybe even something like asking a question, did I get that right? Or something you could say, tell me more about that. And last one I have here is, what do you mean by that? And I've implored some of these questions, John, because I'm very curious, and that's the key to this active listening, of where people are getting these opinions from. What kind of narrative are they following? How has that narrative been influenced? And what is influencing that narrative? What kind of facts and truth, or is there a basis of fact or truth based on what that other person is talking about? So, but if I don't listen to them and listen to their stories or listen to their complaint or listen to their frustration, then how am I going to know where they're coming from?
Right.
And how am I able to see them for like basically the unmet need that they're expressing as they're talking in that particular way? So,
yeah,
I don't know.
That, and I think taking it one step further, hearing it, but then really feeling what it is they're saying, right? Having that compassion or the empathy piece, in truly understanding, again, why they're coming from, where they're coming from, why it is they're saying what it is they're saying. Not just even hearing it, but feeling it, right? Taking it one step further. Right. And understanding that we are all human beings and we have our own battles, we have our own struggles. There are going to be certain rules and laws that are going to be in our favor. And if they're in our favor, then most likely we're going to be like, you know what? I like that law. But understand that there's somebody on the other side of that law that is not in their favor. It's against them. And understanding that struggle, we're all going to suffer, right? In some way, that compassion. Now, I want to, you put this in the notes, and I'll let you ask it, because I'm curious for the audience about someone driving down the desolate road and they come across someone with a flat tire. So I'll turn it over to you, because I love this question, and I'm really curious for our audience who are tuning in live. Please comment right here on social media, and I want to know how you feel if this particular situation that Will is going to present actually happened. Go ahead.
I was going to put this I should have put this at the top as well. But so the question is, if you are driving down a desolate road and you see somebody on the side of the road with a busted tire, and they have the opposite party affiliation. So they have a Trump sticker on their car, or a Biden sticker on the car, and you are on the other side, right? Which we're trying to eradicate that kind of not othering. You see a fellow citizen on the side of the road, John, that is opposite of the ideology that you have, that's promoting that person with a sticker on their car. Do you stop and help them? Or, if somebody has a house and the house on fire and they have a giant like Biden or Trump flag on the front yard, and you do not align with that ideology, do you call 911? Do you go over there and help to rescue people out of that house? Right. What's the answer?
Yeah, and I would certainly hope that the answer is yes. For our audience who's listening, I hope that the answer would always be yes, in that you're willing to help out. Again, a fellow citizen, but not even just a fellow citizen, a fellow human being who is in trouble, right? They've got the tire busted on the side of the road, or their house is burning, or whatever the case may be. I would hope that you would see them as that fellow human being. Now, carry that away from a crisis situation, and you're, I don't know, you're in a dinner, and you guys are having a conversation, and somehow it comes out that this fellow human being, fellow citizen, voted for the other party. How are you going to react? Quite often that can be less than positive, the reaction. I know in my family's household, and when I say my family, I mean my parents, my sisters, and my younger brother, whenever we all get together, one of the things that's off the table to discuss is politics because of how inflammatory it can be. But what if we put it back on the table and we had the conversations, like you mentioned, actively listening, showing empathy, showing compassion? And I know now we're kind of starting to beat a dead horse. I think the key to having mindfulness in politics is being compassionate, being civil, being mature, that you talked about before.
Remaining calm.
Yeah, remaining calm. Yeah, and realizing that your limbic system is starting to take over quite often, and you've got to get control back. Let's talk about the demographics of our show and what that looks like. I love that you put this in the notes, and I got to be honest with everyone. I'm not feeling great. Actually, a complete transparency is I feel like warmed over dog shit. but
you look like warmed over dog shit, John. I'm just saying, not just kidding.
Thank you. Thanks, man. So compassionate. I know.
Feel the compassion. I'm being honest, John. Honesty is compassion. I'm kidding.
Well, anyway, and Will did a fantastic job compiling notes and doing research for this episode. So he's picking up my slack. So I love you, brother, and I appreciate what you're doing for this show. So let's talk about the demographics and how that ties into being a mature adult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me just a little history. John sends me a message like at 9. He sends me his Whoop statistics for the evening. He was in red. I think it was like 20% recovery or something like that, like bad. And I slept. I did a lot of rest yesterday. I was at like 90%. I'm like, we got this, John. John's at 20%. I'm at 90% on the Whoop, if you know what
average.
That is. Let's go. So I have here, last I checked, John, our podcast demographics are mostly men ages like 35 to 55. So according to Wikipedia, what am I saying here? According to Wikipedia,
this identity. Yeah. So that 35 to 55-year-old, that's an adult, according to Wikipedia, right? And I would hope, and I would hope that according to everyone else in society, that age, at least the majority of that age, we're adults, right? We can drink, we can go out and buy weapons, we can go out and buy cars. At that point, your insurance is lower. You can buy a home. I would consider anyone between 35 and 55 a fully grown, a grown-ass man, right?
Grown-ass man and grown-ass women. Grown-ass whatever binary person you are out there, whatever's going on. But you're a mature adult. And, and then I I thought it was actually, John, then I went in the chat GPT and I said to chat GPT and it read what I was saying. Cause I like to, instead of type into it, I just fucking like audio text or whatever, text, audio to text. And, it put defining immature adult, right? So let's start there. And then we'll have defining what a mature adult is, right? So defining an immature adult, right? And just think as I read this, like, sadly, this is a lot of our political climate right now.
Right.
And this is what the definition of immature adult is. An immature adult is someone who exhibits behavior that is characteristic of a person who is not fully developed emotionally or socially. This can manifest in various ways, such as the inability to take responsibility for one's action, a lack of self-control, impulsivity, or a tendency to prioritize short-term gratification for long-term goals. Immature adults may struggle with empathy, have difficulty handling conflicts and criticism, and may be prone to irrational or emotionally driven decision making.
That to me sounds like today's politics, right? Oh my goodness. So,
it sounds like some of our political leaders.
Yeah.
Actually, John, right?
I mean, the other side of that, right, is I think what we've been discussing today. And
you want to read that?
I'll read that. So the mature adult definition is a mature adult is someone who demonstrates emotional, social, and intellectual growth. They possess a range of qualities that reflect their development and ability to navigate life's challenges with wisdom and grace. Mature adults tend to have a strong sense of self-awareness, understanding their strengths and weaknesses. They take responsibility for their actions and choices, showing accountability and owning up for their mistakes. They have developed what? Empathy. Empathy, and they show consideration for others, able to understand different perspectives right? I think we're kind of being immature now in how
No,
we're
I am.
reading
I'm
this.
sorry. I'm making fun of him. Go ahead. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So they have developed empathy and show consideration for others, able to understand different perspectives and engage in productive and respectful communication. Mature adults tend to have good impulse control, make meaningful and thoughtful decisions, and prioritize long-term goals over immediate gratification. They are adaptable, resilient, and capable of handling stress and adversity with composure. Overall, a mature adult embodies qualities that contribute to personal growth, meaningful relationships, and positive contributions to society. Yes. Oh, man. ChatGPT, man, that nailed it right there. That definition of the immature adult definitely seems like what we're seeing in the political arena these days. And it also seems very much like my 4-year-old boy.
Exactly.
And I mean, he struggles with empathy. He struggles with any type of self-control. He's got impulsivity. And I look, on Fox News or I look on CNN and I'm seeing the same thing displayed on these networks. So
by adults. Gosh. By people by the demographic, right? By according to Wikipedia. Right?
Yeah.
Men at age or people of age 20 something to whatever 80, they should be adults. Yeah. And it's like, it's tough right now, John. Like, because I like to think of myself as, I am an adult. Like I try to really continually live through what it means to be a mature adult, like to really listen. That's what I'm aspiring to be a better adult all the time. And really for me, adulting is from a mindfulness perspective and just as a person perspective is really controlling the impulsivity, not letting our emotions get control of us. And that's why meditation, that's why this practice of mindfulness, that's why breath work is so important, so we can remain calm, stay grounded, and be in that executive function, so we can really listen and, synthesize all the different things that are happening at any given time.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love that you included that in there. And, don't get me wrong. I like to have some fun, and there's times when I do act a little immature. But when my actions are going to affect an entire country of my fellow citizens, I would hope that I am putting on my mature hat at that point and acting as though my vote counts, my actions, the way of acting towards others counts, and that when my children see me, they see, that my father is an adult. They don't look at me as a child and somebody who is adding even further divisiveness to this country. I want to listen to other people's stances. I want to appreciate who they are as human beings and understand that they have their own personal struggles and reasons for seeing the world the way that they do. Yeah, man. And then, the trust piece. Let's talk about that. I know you've got that in the notes as well. So let's cover that.
Yeah. Well, I think this is kind of comes back to like, how do we get back to a place of trust? Like, how do we begin to trust the political environment, trust, the institution, trust our leadership? And I think one way that we get lost, John, in this political current, the emotional environment, the othering, the, us versus them whole mentality, so much of that is driven by, sadly, the rhetoric of our leaders in this country right now, but also the news. But if you really think about it, like the news, and if we were always focusing on the federal government, like that just seems so much further out of reach. What if we begin to develop trust in our community here and now? Like the community that we're in, and get involved in the local democracy and the republic that is forming around us all the time. I'm also don't want to use the word politics. It's like how do we get together and understand and compromise and work together for the needs of our community, the real needs, not the needs to make, of a selected few that want to just fucking use other people to make more money. It's not the point. Like, how do we take care of our needs as a community in our immediate community? And I know if we aren't mature and we aren't listening, then and calm, then we can develop that trust. It doesn't have to be ever like this us versus them.
Right.
I would also like to see, John, in the next few years, and I think this might be happening this way, is getting into a third party, which is fantastic because that is going to drive a different conversation. And that's going to create different awareness, and it's going to require new compromises, new ways of thinking, new ways of being together as a society, instead of it just being, red or blue or polarized. I mean, polarizing, but like finding that middle, really, asking better questions based on the needs that are required, or the needs that are coming from our society and who we are as people.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And I want to know again from our audience, what do you think is causing so much divisiveness? What do you think is a way that we can change that and meet in the middle, or at least find some type of compromise? It might not be the exact middle, but finding a compromise. And I'm sure that's different on all the different issues. I know it is. But what can we do as a culture, as a society, to reach that level where we are more human and more American than we are Democratic, or rather Democrat or Republican? So let us know what your thoughts are, whether that's in the comments here on the show, or sending us an email or commenting on social media. We'd love to hear from you. So. What else we got, man? What else we have?
I think, why don't we just go back to a little more founding father wisdom? Okay. Also to reflect back on what you had said earlier about being informed, right? And getting informed. I mean, Thomas Jefferson, I didn't realize that he was a big proponent of a national library system, right? Because he goes on to say the cornerstone of democracy rests on the foundation of an educated electorate. Boom, right? He also says later on, whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. And again, it's our government. I think also people are forgetting that we, the people, we have a voice. We have our voice and exercise our voice by voting. And another way that we also exercise our voice is with our dollars. So if you don't like something, then do not be putting the energy of your currency, the money that you're making, into the pockets of others that are not providing a safer society, a healthy society, a society that's connected, a society that cares about itself. Even the food, John, it's like we can vote with our dollars, to eliminate some of the, I know it's another topic, but the food, that's just an example. If you stop buying shit processed food, they're going to have to change, so that's another way of being mindful of your politics, is not just how you're showing up at the voting booth on election day, but how you're voting with your money on every single day. Right. I mean, where you put that money, it's just you're propping up. What are you propping up with your money? And if you don't believe in if you want a healthier society and want a more calm society, then you should put your money behind things that create that in our society. I don't anything.
No, I love that. I mean, there's so much, again, coming back to what money drives. Follow the dollar, and follow every single dollar that you spend, and see how it's affecting the political climate. I mean, from the food you eat to the and again, I'm not going to get too political here. The pharmaceuticals. I'm not going to get too political about politics, but you know what I'm saying. You gotta find where the dollar is going, and understand the effect that every dollar that you spend has on the greater political climate of the country. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I think, think about the importance of propping up and living for and standing by, the Constitution and Bill of Rights. I based on what we just experienced coming through the COVID lockdowns and stuff, John, it's like any political entity that is going to take away my free speech, which is in the First Amendment of our Constitution. I'm sorry, you are not my flavor. Even to think about that as somebody that's running in a republic is just awful. Here's some stuff from James Madison, I thought, who actually is the author of the U.S. Constitution, right? He can get a little, not dark, but like he definitely wants us to, he very fervently can lets us know in some of these quotes of where our nation can go if we don't wake up and be more mindful. If our nation is ever taken over, it will be taken over from within. That's James Madison. Go ahead, John. You hide. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, crisis is the rallying cry of the tyrant, and the people shall not be deprived or abridged of their right to speak, which you were just talking about, or to publish their sentiments. And the freedom of the press, as one of the great bulwarks of liberty, shall be inviolable. And that's, I think that's great. I mean, we would not be doing this show if it weren't for that, right? We would not be doing this show. We wouldn't even have the freedom to record it, never mind publish it.
Right.
So these are fantastic. And it's nice to know that we live in a society where we have those freedoms. But yeah, also coming back to, if our nation is ever taken over, it's going to be taken over from within. We are, for all intents and purposes, right now, we are the one superpower in the world. And yes,
we're a free superpower. We're a free country.
Yeah. And there are definitely what we called in the military near peer threats, up and coming potential superpowers that are there. But I think our greatest threat these days lies within. And
what we're experiencing right now.
A lot of it could be changed with mindfulness. And I know that sounds grandiose, but it's absolutely true. When you start to practice mindfulness, you start to see others, right, as
fellow citizens.
Right, you start to see those others as fellows, and you start to understand where they're coming from and maybe appreciate their views. That's all I got to say about that.
Stop, drop, and listen. Maybe that's it, right? Stop, drop all the bullshit, and listen actively.
I love that.
Open mind, open heart, right? Take a breath, be calm, be respectful, listen with an open body, lean in, make eye contact, ask good questions so you can further the conversation, really get to the need that this person has, with the society that they're in. Like we have a huge opportunity, John. I'm really glad we did this episode today because this is what we need to, this is because of free speech. Like you said, we can have this conversation. So hopefully people that are listening, and we love you guys for listening, and thank you for being part of our show. And we haven't said anything today that's going to, that's going to piss anybody off. And I shouldn't say fuck them. Like, that's not very compassionate. Me being soon to be an ambassador of compassion.
I love that you were just talking about compassion. You're like, fuck them.
Fuck am I can't save everyone, John. I'm sorry, right? I mean, that's not listening very well, is it, John? I know, right? See how quickly you can go the other way, and quickly also I can get emotional. It's like, oh my God, if they don't believe what I'm doing, then they gotta get it. They're eradicated. So it can be a very thin veil sometimes, as we vacillate often between like the emotional and reactivity. And if you're feeling, this is where mindfulness comes in. If you're feeling like you're getting very reactive and getting stirred emotionally by some sort of political conversation, right, or something that's going on in politics or in the news, what if you just take a breath, right? Stop, right? STOP, stop, take a breath, observe. Like when you say observe, zoom out, like really get into that higher perspective, understand hopefully some of the things we talked about today about living in a free country and what it takes to live in a free country, right? And then proceed, right, with a calm mind and open heart, and know that you're a fellow citizen, and there's other people that have needs out there, and there's a win-win for everybody. But it might take a little bit of time to get there, and it's not going to be like an express, happy meal that you can get in like 1 or 2 minutes. Like, it takes time to work for a result that works for everybody.
Time and effort.
Lots of effort, time, like could be lots of time, could be lots of different efforts on lots of different days to do this. But as long as you maintain that maturity and that calm and that adulting, like we're in this great country, John. I just don't want to see it go away.
Right.
Don't want to see this go away. And it just feels like it's slipping through our fingers because we're not using all hands on deck in order at the community level and at the bigger levels to really listen and to really be a part of something fantastic and listening to and being an adult. But anyway, great stuff, right. John.
Yeah, back at you, brother. Well, hey, for our audience, thank you for joining us today. And we sincerely appreciate you, but we also sincerely appreciate you tuning in. And if you got something out of this episode, please share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues, whoever you feel could benefit. And then please give us a review and subscribe to the podcast wherever you can subscribe. That's on YouTube. That's on Spotify. It's wherever you can subscribe. Subscribe.
Great. Thank yourself for listening today. And thank you for sharing this with your people out there. John, thank you for a very dynamic episode. Hey, I guess if you're talking about freedom and democracy, what does Jefferson say? It's like a dynamic democracy, right? So I guess we got to talk about it dynamically. Dynamic democracy. An informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. Love you all out there. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you,
John. Always a pleasure, my brother.
Back at you, brother. Until next time, everyone. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.